Wrong place to break down, old man. A laugh bursts out among the men in leather jackets. The old bicycle jolts to a stop. The chain snaps, dropping to the ground right in front of the most notorious biker bar in town. That thing still runs, a younger man calls out loud enough for the entire table to hear. The old man doesn't answer. He simply bends down, lifts the bike back up his hands, trembling slightly as they touch the broken chain. Tattooed arms fold across chests. Eyes look down, not with curiosity, but with mockery. Or are you putting on a show for us? Laughter erupts again, louder this time, more voices joining in. No one stands up. No one reaches out. No one says, "Let me help." The old man gathers each item that has fallen from his basket, head lowered, silent. And the loudest place of all his silence becomes the most out-of-place thing there. If you believe that true courage doesn't live in noise but in the silence of those who have lived through war, subscribe to Brave Veteran Stories, so together we can preserve the memory, dignity, and reverence owed to our quiet heroes. Ethan Cole bends down beside his old bicycle slowly, as if he doesn't want to cause any more pain to something already worn out. The broken chain lies there, cold and rigid, no different from the pieces of metal he once picked up in his life in places where things no longer had names. He reaches out and touches it. His fingers tremble slightly, not from fear, but because his body carries wounds that never fully disappear. He pauses for a moment, takes a deep breath, then continues. He doesn't look around. He doesn't need to. The sounds are clear enough to tell him exactly where he is. Laughter. Mockery. The voices of people too young to have learned when silence matters. The faded veteran's cap still sits neatly on his head. The brim is frayed. The embroidered unit insignia has softened with time. But he doesn't take it off. He never took it off in places far worse than this, so there's no reason to remove it here. Ethan lays the chain across his thigh, trying to reconnect each metal link. He moves slowly, very slowly. Not because he doesn't know how, but because his hands no longer obey him the way they once did. Each time his fingers slip off the metal, he stops for a moment, waits for the trembling to pass, then continues. He has learned that patience is the last thing that remains when strength is gone. The laughter behind him doesn't stop. It spreads in layers one after another, as if his silence were fuel. Someone says something about the bike. Someone else throws out a line loud enough for others to hear. Ethan doesn't respond. He doesn't need to prove that he hears them. He only needs to prove that he is still standing. A can falls out of the bike's basket and rolls across the ground. Ethan leans over and picks it up. The can is dented. He turns it until it sits straight again, then places it back where it belongs. Another apple rolls farther away. He reaches for it. Slowly. Very slowly. Before his hand can touch it, a boot comes down on it. Not hard. Just enough to crush it. Ethan stops. He looks at the smashed apple. He doesn't look at the boot. He doesn't look at the person standing there. He speaks very softly, as if speaking only to himself, saying that it's all right. Just 2 words, enough to hold on to his calm. He rises slowly. His back is no longer straight. A pain runs along his spine, familiar like an old acquaintance who never asks permission before returning. He waits for it to fade. He is used to waiting. Then he bends down again. In that moment, memory knocks quietly. Another morning, another place, the same posture, the same act of picking things up. But back then, the things on the ground couldn't be put back where they belonged. Ethan doesn't let the memory spill over. He has learned how to set it aside. Memories are for the night. For moments when no one is watching. A voice speaks somewhere small and hesitant, saying that he doesn't need to do this. Ethan gently shakes his head. He says that it's fine. His voice is even. No blame. No resentment. He rights the bicycle. The front wheel is crooked. He turns it until it's straight. Every movement is slow and deliberate, like a habit preserved after many years of discipline. The laughter begins to change its tone. It's no longer just joking. There's a cruel patience now, the kind that comes from realizing he won't react, that he won't stand up and fight back, that he won't give them the satisfaction they're looking for. Ethan straightens his cap, brushes the dust from the brim, and settles it back into place. The motion is so familiar, it requires no thought. He stands there beneath their downward stares. He doesn't ask for help. He doesn't explain. He doesn't justify himself. His silence isn't weakness. It's a choice. He has stood still beneath far louder noise than this. He has learned that sometimes silence is the only way to hold on to what remains of yourself. Ethan lifts the grocery basket and sets it neatly in place. The bicycle still isn't ready to move, but he doesn't hurry. And it is that calm, that silence that begins to turn the jokes around him into something else sharper, more direct, and far more dangerous. The laughter is no longer scattered. It gathers, grows denser, as if someone has just given it permission to be loud. Ethan Cole keeps his head lowered beside the bicycle, but the words now are no longer careless. They are chosen, clear enough for him to hear, sharp enough for others to hear and laugh along. "Film it," a voice calls out. This one looks fun. A phone is raised. Then another. Lenses point toward him, not to remember, but to entertain. Ethan knows this. He doesn't need to look. He can hear the rhythm of the laughter change as someone starts counting down, starts commenting, starts inventing a title for a clip he will never watch. Ethan straightens the grocery basket. A cloth bag is nudged aside by a foot. Not hard. Not enough to spill. Just enough to say they can. Ethan pauses for a moment. He doesn't look up. He doesn't ask why. He simply puts the bag back where it belongs carefully, as if it is the only thing he still controls. Is that hat even real? The question lands deliberately. Or did you buy it at a thrift store? Laughter bursts out. More of it. Louder. Ethan stands still. The faded veteran's cap remains on his head, unmoved, unshaken. He doesn't reach for it. He doesn't defend it. He doesn't react. He leaves the cap where it is, as if letting it answer for itself. An old man trying to be a hero. Look at that, his hat's older than the bike. Ethan hears them. He hears every word. But he doesn't respond. He doesn't need to say that the hat was with him on days when no one laughed. He doesn't need to say that there were mornings when putting that hat on was the only way he remembered who he was. He learned long ago that not everyone deserves to hear those things. Another boot bumps the grocery bag, this time harder. The bag tilts. An item falls out. Ethan bends down to pick it up. His back curves. His shoulders sink. His hands tremble a little more now. No one helps. No one bends down with him. The phones remain pointed in his direction. "Can't you hear us? Or are your ears too old now?" Ethan picks up the last item. He stands up. Slowly. Very slowly. His entire body seems to negotiate with time itself. He clenches his fist. Not to strike. Not to fight back. Only to keep it from shaking more. Fingers curl inward. Fingernails press into skin. He exhales. Long. Steady. "No need," he says quietly, when someone pretends to offer a hand, then pulls it back. His voice isn't raised. It doesn't shake. It carries no resentment. That sentence doesn't calm the crowd. It emboldens them. Because now they understand that he won't respond the way they want. That he won't lose his temper. That he won't give them the ending they're looking for. "Look at him," another voice says, wearing that hat like he still thinks he's in the military. Ethan doesn't look up. He only tightens his hand slightly. In that brief moment, memory brushes against him. Not gunfire. Not commands. But faces. Men who never came home. Hats just like this one left somewhere with no one laughing. He lets the memory pass. He doesn't hold on to it. He doesn't push it away. He stands still and lets it move through him like a familiar wind. The words begin to lose patience. They are no longer just teasing. There is something sharper now in their tone. Something testing how far they can go, wondering what he will do if they take one more step. Ethan places both hands on the handlebars. He straightens a little, just enough to breathe. The hat is still there. Silent. Like him. No one in the crowd realizes that when silence stops being a joke, it becomes a challenge. And in that moment when humiliation crosses the line of mockery, something else begins to move quietly, but impossible to stop. Some people begin to look away. Not out of compassion, but because the feeling that something is not right has finally reached them. An eye drops. A dry cough breaks the air. A hand slips a phone back into a pocket. But no one says stop. No one intervenes. That shared silence is not mercy. It is the habit of standing aside while nothing has touched you personally yet. That's enough. A voice wavers somewhere in the crowd, weak, quickly swallowed. Enough of what another voice snaps back, flat and cold. He's fine. Ethan Cole remains there, both hands resting on the handlebars, his shoulders heavy but unbroken. He doesn't look at anyone. He doesn't bend any further. He holds his position as if taking even one step would shatter the fragile balance he's maintaining. He knows this feeling. The moment before things cross a line. The moment people test how far they can go when no one steps in. A door opens behind the crowd. Not loudly, not with a sound meant to announce itself, but enough to make several people turn at the same time. Attention shifts as if an invisible pull has taken hold. Half-finished remarks stop mid-sentence. Smiles stiffen on faces. Marcus Iron Hale steps out. He isn't in a hurry. He doesn't bring threats with him. He doesn't need to. He's a large man wearing the leather that marks leadership, broad-shouldered, his steps heavy but sure. Gray threads his beard. His eyes are deep accustomed to reading people before they realize they're being seen. "What's going on here?" someone asks, trying to sound casual. Marcus doesn't answer. He stands there, taking in the whole scene. The bicycle with its broken chain. The groceries pushed out of place. The phones not yet put away. Then he looks at Ethan. His gaze lingers a beat longer. Not with pity, not with curiosity, just the quiet assessment of someone used to reading situations through small details. He was just someone starts to explain. Marcus raises a hand. Not high, not forcefully, but enough to end the sentence where it stands. He steps forward. His boots hit the ground firm and deliberate. The crowd parts on its own. No orders. No signals. Everyone knows who they're standing in front of. The man who built the order here. The man whose nod can end things and whose silence can begin them. Marcus bends down and lifts the bicycle. The movement is clean, unshowy. He looks at the broken chain. Quickly, long enough, then sets the bike upright. He turns to Ethan. "Are you all right?" His voice is low, neither loud nor soft. Ethan nods barely. "I'm fine." 2 words. Enough. Marcus looks back to the crowd. His eyes move across each face. Some heads drop. Someone swallows. Someone tries and fails to look unaffected. Attention has fully shifted now, no longer fixed on the old man. It centers on the man who hasn't raised his voice yet, has slowed everything down. "Does anyone want to say anything else?" Marcus asks. No one answers. The silence is different. It's heavy. It has weight. It forces people to hear their own breathing. Marcus doesn't scold. He doesn't lecture. He simply stands there and lets the silence do its work. Then he turns back to Ethan and gives a small nod. "I'll take care of it." Ethan doesn't ask how. He doesn't refuse. He simply lets his hands relax. For the first time since everything began, his fingers loosen. A deep breath slips out unheard by anyone else. The crowd understands something now. Not everything, but enough to know the joke went too far, and that there are lines that cannot be crossed, even in the loudest places. And when the man who never needed to raise his voice steps into the center of the story, real power quietly fills the space, preparing to call the truth by its name. Marcus Iron Hale bends down and lifts the bicycle. The movement is clean, unshowy, as if he's doing something entirely ordinary. The wheel is misaligned, the chain broken, the frame scraped. He looks it over long enough to understand, not long enough to make it a spectacle, then turns to Ethan Cole. "Can you stand?" Marcus's voice is low, no louder than it needs to be. "I can," Ethan replies. "One sentence, nothing more." Marcus nods. He sets the bicycle down and straightens it. Then he turns and looks directly at the crowd gathered around them. His gaze isn't sharp, but it's deep enough that everyone knows they've just been seen not with mockery, but with judgment. No one hurt. One person shakes their head. Another stays silent. Marcus doesn't ask again. He doesn't need explanations. He looks at Ethan once more, then back to the crowd. The motion is slow and deliberate, as if he's placing 2 images side by side and letting everyone draw their own comparison. "Take it inside," he says. No one asks, take what? No one asks, why. The silence spreads faster than the laughter did moments before. Phones are lowered. Crossed arms loosen. Eyes that had been aimed downward now drift unsure where to rest. "I'll do it," someone blurts out more quickly than necessary. "I can carry it another adds." Marcus raises a hand. Not high, not rushed, no need. I've got it. He bends down, lifts the bicycle again, and turns to Ethan. "Come with me." Ethan nods. He picks up the grocery basket. His hands still tremble, but they're no longer clenched. He follows Marcus at an unhurried pace, keeping just enough distance. Not out of fear, out of respect. "What's your name?" Marcus asks as they begin to move. Ethan, he answers. Last name, Cole. Marcus repeats it silently to himself. He says nothing more. The crowd parts on its own, forming a narrow path. No one tells them to do it. They do it because they realize the balance has shifted. This is no longer something to watch, no longer a joke to laugh at. What's happening now requires waiting. We were just joking, a voice calls out, weak too late. Marcus stops. He doesn't turn around. Jokes don't leave people standing with their heads down, he says. Then he keeps walking. Ethan hears it. He doesn't look back. He doesn't need to. That sentence wasn't meant for him. It was meant for those who had just learned that some jokes should never be started. Inside, no one raises their voice. No one laughs. The people who were loudest before now stand the stillest. Ethan sets the grocery basket down in a corner. He straightens a little, as if only now allowing himself to adjust his posture. Marcus props the bicycle neatly. He looks again at the broken chain, at Ethan's hands, at the faded cap on his head. His gaze lingers for an extra beat, not out of curiosity, but because he's recognized something that hasn't yet been named. You've worn that hat a long time, Marcus asks. A long time, Ethan answers. His voice is steady. No explanation. Marcus nods. Here he says we don't laugh at the things people have to carry. It isn't an apology. It's an acknowledgement. Ethan doesn't reply. He only nods very slightly. But in that nod, something has changed, not because he's been defended, but because for the first time since the chain snapped, he's no longer standing alone in front of the crowd. The contempt is gone. In its place is waiting. No one knows what comes next. But everyone understands that when things slow down like this, whatever follows will no longer be a joke. And in that waiting silence, as Marcus's eyes linger on the details others overlooked, the truth begins to speak for itself. Marcus stands a little closer to Ethan. He doesn't touch him. He doesn't urge him forward. Just close enough to notice what everyone else missed from the start. When Ethan bends to set the grocery basket back in place, his shirt shifts, revealing a thin metal chain resting against his chest. Marcus sees it before he has time to think. He raises his hand slowly. May I, Marcus asks. Ethan nods. Go ahead. Marcus gently pulls the chain free. 2 military dog tags slide out, clinking softly against each other. Old metal worn at the edges, but the engraving is still clear. Marcus lifts them and reads aloud, not loud, not quiet, just enough for those nearby to hear. Ethan Cole. Unit, United States Marine Corps. Years of service, 72 to 76. A pause settles over the room. Not silence born of fear. Silence born of recognition. Marcus continues a beat slower now, as if each word is finding its place. Battalion. Company. He stops and looks more closely. That's right. Ethan says nothing. He stands still. His hands hang relaxed at his sides. His eyes remain fixed on an invisible point ahead. He's used to hearing his name read this way. Not often, but every time it happens, he stands exactly like this. Were you a soldier? A voice asks from behind, not mocking, not challenging, just surprised. I was, Ethan answers. One sentence. Enough. Doesn't look like it, someone else murmurs. Marcus turns. War doesn't leave the same mark on everyone he says, but it always leaves something. A young man steps out from the crowd. He doesn't move confidently, as if weighing each step before taking it. His eyes are locked on the dog tags in Marcus's hand. Ethan. Cole, he asks. His voice trembles slightly. Ethan turns his head. For the first time since everything began. He looks at the young man carefully without hurry. His gaze seems to sift through old faces, searching memory. My father, the young man says, swallowing. His name was Daniel. Daniel Reed. Ethan blinks once, then nods. Reed, he says. Radio operator. You saved him, the young man says quickly, afraid the words might disappear if he slows down. My father told me. He was wounded. You pulled him out, in the middle of the night. Ethan inhales, slowly. We pulled each other, he says. There were no heroes. Marcus looks at the young man. You're sure? I'm sure, he answers. My father said that if it weren't for a man named Ethan Cole, I wouldn't be standing here. No one laughs. No one interrupts. The sharp words from before vanish as if they never existed. The eyes that once stared now drop away, not because they're forced to, but because no one knows where else to look. "How's your father now?" Ethan asks. "He passed," the young man says. "From old injuries." He pauses. "But he lived another 20 years. Ethan nods. He doesn't smile. He doesn't sigh. He just nods as if that number alone is what matters. Marcus gently places the dog tags back into Ethan's hand. "Thank you," he says. His tone doesn't change. He adds nothing more. Ethan nods in return. "You're welcome." Someone starts to say something. A mouth opens, then closes. There are no excuses, no clumsy explanations. Shame spreads slowly but evenly. No one tries to push it away. No one blames the joke, the alcohol, or carelessness. Marcus turns to the crowd. "We've heard enough," he says. "Now we do the right thing." No one objects. No one needs to ask what the right thing is. By now, everyone knows. And once the truth has been called by its proper name, what comes next is no longer punishment or display, but the way people choose to treat one another after understanding. Those who had been laughing begin to lower their heads. No one tells them to. They do it on their own. Some stare down at the tips of their boots. Some turn their faces away. Some stand still, as if only now realizing they spoke too much, while knowing too little. The silence no longer carries defiance. It carries the feeling of having learned something too late. "We should," Marcus begins, his voice low and steady, as if about to restore order. Ethan raises a hand very gently. "No need," he says. Just 2 words. Not raised, not a command, but enough to make Marcus pause. Marcus turns to him. "They crossed a line," he says. "Not in anger, just stating a fact." Ethan nods. "I know." He pauses for a beat, then continues slowly. "They didn't know. Now they do." The words fall without sound, but they spread. They pass through those with lowered heads. They touch those who had been recording. They come to rest on those who had been silent from the start. No one argues. No one reaches for excuses. No one says "I'm sorry" in a way meant to lighten their own burden. "You sure?" Marcus asks. "I am," Ethan replies. "Punishment doesn't make people remember. Action does." A young man steps forward slowly. "We..." He begins, then stops. The words can't find their footing. He takes a deep breath. "We were wrong." Ethan looks at him. His gaze is neither harsh nor indulgent. "Hold on to that," he says. "Don't let it slip away." The young man nods. Once. Then steps back. No one applauds. No one offers praise. This forgiveness doesn't need an audience. Marcus looks around. "No one leaves," he says. "We finish this." "Finish what?" someone asks, cautiously. "What should have been done from the start," Marcus answers. Ethan doesn't step in. He stands there, his hands relaxed. He said his part. What comes next belongs to other people's actions. His forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It sets a new standard for what happens next. "Get the tools," Marcus says. "I've got a spare chain," another voice answers. "I can adjust the brakes," someone adds. Ethan looks at each of them. He doesn't thank them. He doesn't refuse. He gives a small nod, as if accepting a task that needs doing, not a favor. He's used to working alongside people who've made mistakes, as long as they're willing to fix them. "Want some coffee?" someone asks quietly. "No need," Ethan says. "Water's fine." A bottle of water is handed over. Ethan takes it. "Thank you," he says. That single word is enough to close the distance. Marcus stands beside him. "You didn't have to do that," he says softly. "Do what?" "Forgive them." Ethan looks straight at him. "I didn't forgive them," he says. "I forgave myself." Marcus says nothing. He understands. Those who once mocked now stand working. No noise, no showing off. Each person takes a task. No one revisits what happened. No one claims credit. Respect doesn't come from long apologies. It comes from choosing silence and doing what's right. Ethan watches. For the first time since the chain broke, he doesn't have to clench his hands to keep them from shaking. His breathing is even. The fatigue is still there, but it no longer weighs as heavily. "All set," someone says. Marcus nods. "Walk him out." Ethan adjusts his cap. The brim is still frayed. The stitching still faded. But the way people look at it has changed. He doesn't need anyone standing at attention. He doesn't need applause. He needs something simpler, people knowing when to stop and when to act. And when words give way to action, honor quietly returns, clearing the path for what will be remembered far longer. The bicycle is set upright again, steadier than before. The new chain sits cleanly on the sprocket. The brakes grip evenly, the wheels run true. No one says which part they worked on. When the job is finished, each person simply steps back, as if the only thing that matters is that the bicycle is ready, not who fixed it. Ethan Cole places his hand on the handlebars. He gives them a light shake. The bike holds firm. He nods very slightly. That single nod is enough to close the afternoon. There are no long thank yous, no applause, just a quiet agreement that what needed to be done was done right. "Can you ride?" Marcus asks. "I can," Ethan replies. They walk him outside. No one pushes ahead. No one jokes or laughs. Those who had been watching now step aside, forming a natural path. Ethan pedals slowly, steadily. The bicycle rolls forward. One person follows, then two, then more. No one calls it an escort, but everyone knows what they're doing. The road home isn't long, but that day it carries weight. The engines keep their distance. No crowding, no urging, just presence. Ethan keeps his familiar rhythm. His back is a little straighter, not because he's being protected, but because he no longer has to brace himself alone. When they reach the small house, Ethan stops and puts a foot down. Marcus steps forward, unhurried. "If you ever need anything," Marcus says, "come back." Ethan nods. "I know." They don't shake hands for long. They don't say more. The people standing behind Marcus nod to Ethan one by one. No deep bows, no standing at attention, just a quiet acknowledgement enough. The next day, when Ethan rides past the bar, everything slows. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Helmets come off. No signals are given. No orders spoken. The silence forms like a new habit held by awareness, not fear. Ethan rides on. He doesn't look toward the bar. He doesn't need to. A small plaque appears beside the entrance. Simple, unadorned. Just one line of text: "Here honor is remembered." No one reads it aloud, but everyone reads it. The words aren't there to boast. They remind that there were days people acted wrongly and days they chose to make it right. That honor doesn't need drums. It needs memory. In the weeks that follow, the silent ritual remains. No one explains it to newcomers. No one retells the story like a trophy. They simply do it. And after doing it long enough, the act becomes identity. Ethan goes on with his life. Grocery runs, bicycle rides, the faded cap on his head. He doesn't come back to be seen. But each time he passes by, he knows he isn't invisible. Not because he's celebrated, but because he's understood. Some things don't need apologies. They need time. They need action. They need silence in the right place. The people there learned that lesson not through a lecture, but through an afternoon none of them will forget. Honor doesn't disappear with time. It only waits for someone quiet enough to recognize it. If this story makes you believe that honor and kindness never retire, please share this video and subscribe to Brave Veteran Stories so that none of their memories are ever forgotten. Brave Veteran Stories, we remember the quiet heroes.